Shit like this is absolutely insane. I'm going to read you guys the story of this Ukrainian family in California who loses custody for refusing to trans their daughter. A Ukrainian family in California says that child welfare removed their teenage daughter from their home and placed them on a child abuse registry after they declined to affirm her transgender identity. Speaking to Ruddux under the conditions of anonymity, I can never say that word right, but they wanted to remain anonymous. The parents say that the removal followed a report filed by their daughter's psychiatrist without their knowledge. The mother, who will be referred to as Ellie, told Ruddux that a social worker from Shasta County Child Welfare Services arrived at the family's home on June 3rd, 2024 without prior notice. According to Ellie, the worker accused the parents of emotional abuse and demanded access to their daughter, who will be referred to as Maya, without presenting a warrant or even a court order. She just kept saying, "You're emotionally abusing your child," Ellie said, but she had nothing in her hands, no paperwork, nothing. The removal was a dramatic climax following years of instability that Ellie says began in her early childhood. After the family immigrated to the United States in 2007, Maya began experiencing anxiety, anger issues, attention difficulties, and emotional dysregulation. Her mental health concerns, which once resulted in a temporary placement in a psychiatric facility, were made worse by the persistent bullying she experienced in schools starting first and second grade. She said the bullying came not only from other students but also from indifferent teachers, and the repeat complaints to school administration were dismissed. In effort to protect their child, the family relocated multiple times, hoping to improve their daughter's environment. It felt like every time we tried to give her a fresh start, something else happened, Ellie said, explaining that they eventually settled down in California after her husband found a ranch described as heaven for their family. But it was around this time that Ellie says Maya became increasingly preoccupied with psychology and mental health. She began researching diagnoses, requesting testing for ADHD, and asking about psychiatric medications. Ellie believes it was her daughter's attempt to better understand her difficulty at school. She was looking for an explanation, Ellie said, perhaps something that would explain why she felt the way she did, why she was different, and why she had been bullied or difficulties making friends. In January of 2022, Maya suffered a head injury while being dropped off at school after another vehicle backed into her as she exited the car. 2 months later, she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder during a phone-based evaluation conducted by a psychologist after a single remote appointment. According to Ellie, the diagnosis was based largely on questionnaires with no in-person assessment. Throughout that year, Ellie and Maya continued to pursue additional diagnosis and medications, often requesting specific prescriptions she had researched herself. Maya also began gradual changes to her appearance. She cut her long hair shorter, shifted to androgynous clothing, and asked to be called by a unisex name. Ellie said she and her husband accommodated these changes in order to reduce conflict and support their daughter. "We don't speak English at home, and our native tongue is a very gendered language, but we even changed how we refer to her and try to keep her happy." Ellie said, "We tried to be careful. I even used this new name." At the end of the year, the family visited Mercy Medical Center for a routine checkup that would change their fate forever. While speaking with the doctor, Maya requested a referral to see a psychiatrist. Believing she was just seeking more counseling for her difficulties at school, Ellie was initially supportive. The girl was referred to a Dr. Sager, who she began to see in early 2023. Dr. Sager worked through both Mercer Medical Center and a clinic called the Children Legacy Center for Resilience, a mental health facility in Redding described to the parents as being trauma-focused under Dr. Sager's care. Maya was prescribed lithium and later antidepressants, with frequent medication adjustments. Now, while Ellie typically sat in during the counseling appointments, in March of 2023, Ellie says her daughter requested to meet with Dr. Sager alone. "My daughter asked Dr. Sager, 'Do you help with LGBTQ issues?' and then asked me to leave the room. I had concerns, but I did it because I didn't want to be perceived as imposing on my daughter's therapy." Ellie explained, adding that she knew almost nothing about transgenderism or any other LGBTQ issues at the time. Following private meetings with Dr. Sager, Meyer began to express an explicit interest in pursuing a transgender identity. Around the same time, Maya told her parents that she had joined an LGBTQ Discord server where she felt accepted. She said, "I did not suspect anything. I wanted her to be happy so badly. It had been so long since she was happy, so when I would walk by her room and hear her laughing and playing games with her friends online, it would basically make her happy. By early 2024, the situation had escalated further. Maya, then 14, began demanding hormone replacement therapy and spoke explicitly about wanting a hysterectomy. Her parents refused, asking her to wait until she was 18 before making serious medical decisions. After this refusal, Ellie said that Maya became entirely unmanageable. She stopped eating with the family and accused her parents of abuse. Desperate for help, Ellie repeatedly contacted Dr. Sager, describing the family as being in a crisis and asking for family therapy. She said, "It sounded like you guys needed a good family therapist. I'm taking it upon myself to find you a good family therapist, and I trusted her." Ellie recalls, "I trusted her to help us. I thought she was on our side." Unbeknownst to Ellie, Dr. Sager was already in the process of filing a report with County Child Welfare Services to have Maya removed from their custody. On June 1st, the family experienced an explosive argument. Maya demanded to be placed into foster care, telling her parents she would have an easier time accessing hormones and surgeries if she were in state custody. 2 days later, a social worker arrived at the family's residence. It was Monday, June 3rd at noon. Ellie describes, "I had been working on an art piece and was distracted, but there was a persistent knock at the door, and my son called me to answer it. He said there was a woman at the door. After Ellie opened the door, the woman introduced herself as being from Shasta County Department of Health and Human Services and stated that a complaint of child emotional abuse had been filed against the family. She had no paperwork, no badge, no documentation, nothing. She just kept saying we had emotionally abused our child and demanded that we produce her immediately. I was so confused. I kept asking her who did this, and she wouldn't answer. She just kept asking to see my daughter." Ellie said, noting that the blow was so sudden that she had an immediate physical reaction and became ill. Her husband then stepped in to speak with the caseworker. Desperate for answers, Ellie went to her daughter's room and it had been Dr. Sager who report. She started screaming and swearing and told me to get the fuck out of her room. Ellie says, "I left back to where my husband was, still talking to the caseworker. He again demanded any proof from her, a court order, a copy of a report, anything. She said, I don't have to have that. So he told her that because she had provided no evidence that she was who she was not allowed to speak with my daughter, and we told her to leave." The caseworker then left, stating that they would call the police to assist with the removal. As the caseworker left the house, Ellie says her daughter ran out behind her. Barefoot, she wasn't wearing any shoes, and I heard the caseworker tell her, "I can't legally drive you, so just follow behind the car." She was going to let my child run behind her car, barefoot. I tried to throw her some flip-flops at the very least. I was still worried about her feet and begging her to put the flip-flops on. Shortly after, 8 police officers arrived to assist with the removal. My daughter had left everything in her room and all of her stuff, her laptop, everything. She had taken nothing with her, so focused on running away with the caseworker. Because Maya had left the computer behind and unlocked, Ellie says that she noticed the final thing that she was doing was chatting with one of her Discord friends. I could see the Discord chat up. She had been communicating with other users up until the moment she had left. Ellie recalls adding that she saw chats where this other user had advised her daughter on how to successfully be removed from her family's custody. According to Ellie, the messages contained instructions on how to accuse her parents of emotional abuse, what terminology to use with authorities, and how to ensure removal from the home. She was being instructed on how to better file emotional abuse claims, how to be removed from the home, how to dig a grave for your parents. Me and my husband were so emotional seeing that I completely broke down. I said to the officers, "Okay, fine, she wants to go this badly. Take her away. I will regret those words forever." From that moment, Ellie says that her family was thrust into months of hell. Constant hearings never resulting in any indication that Maya would be returned to them. And as the family finally got to the chance to access reports and more information, they learned their cultural background had been cited by the state of being in conflict with the child's gender identity. Maya routinely used self-harm as leverage, telling caseworkers she would harm herself if she was sent back to her parents. She had expressed concerns she would be isolated from her online friends and has cited her family's transphobia as a reason to stay in state care. Ellie notes that she never had particularly strong opinions on gender ideology prior to her daughter being removed from her custody, but that she simply wanted Maya to wait until adulthood before making any irreversible medical decisions. Following the custody battle, however, she began to research more into the subject and found community in a Facebook group of parents who had experienced similar family upheavals the result of transgender identifying children. As a result of taking to social media to appeal for assistance in her case, Maya has told her caseworkers that her parents are spreading so much hate about the LGBTQ plus and transgender community. Ellie also says that many of the claims cited by Child Protective Services were total fabrications or highly misrepresented. One of the allegations that she cited as an example is that CPS wrote that Maya had been forced to live in a shed by her family. But the building humorously referred to as a shed by the family, in fact, is a fully furnished suite in their 2.6-acre property. Ellie shared photos of the shed with Redux to evidence her statement. It has everything: bedroom, bathroom, heating, Wi-Fi. It is not some dirty place. It is like a second home. Ellie clarifies, adding that they had openly discussed using this separate property as a voluntary conflict resolution measure with Dr. Sager, believing that giving Maya privacy and distance would help her de-escalate when she became volatile. Maya has reportedly also told caseworkers that she was physically abused by her family, an allegation her mother strongly denies. Court records and medical reports reviewed by Redux contain no evidence supporting claims of physical abuse. A 2024 forensic psychiatric evaluation prepared for the court further indicates that Maya fabricated the sole incident in which she alleged her father was physically violent and could not recall any other instances in which her parents caused her physical harm. The psychiatric evaluation, which cannot be shared publicly due to the amount of sensitive medical information included, also confirms that Maya received high levels of support and validation from the LGBT online communities in which she participated after beginning to identify as transgender, and that her desire to leave her family home only emerged after otherwise supportive parents refused to allow her to medically transition. The drafting psychiatrist diagnosed Maya with gender dysphoria along with a host of mental health concerns including borderline personality disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and ADHD. A 2023 detention report also claimed that Maya's family was unwilling to have her in the home, something Ellie dismisses as ridiculous lies, considering the extensive effort and cost they have incurred to reunite the family. Part of reasoning cited by the family is the family's unwillingness to sign off on a transgender-based case plan they would be required to comply with. Shockingly, Ellie says that she and her husband have been entered into the California Child Abuse Center Central Index. This registry contains the names of individuals whom county Child Protective Service agencies have identified as suspected child abusers. Crucially, being listed on the CACI does not require a criminal charge, arrest, or a conviction. A person can be entered into the database solely based on a child welfare investigation and report. Abuse does not have to be physical, and emotional abuse is included as justification for placement on the registry. Being listed on the CACI can have life-altering consequences, even without criminal charges, as those on the registry are generally barred from working with children and can fail routine vulnerable sector checks. Ellie says this has impacted her ability to work as a teacher. Fears that it may impact her husband if he is ever required to produce a background check for his job. We are now registered child abusers, and we have been unable to file a grievance against this. I have no idea how long it lasts or if it can ever be removed at all, Ellie said. Since 2024, the family has been gradually removed from any decision-making authority with respect to their daughter's care or education. School began refusing to allow them to have access to her records so they could review them. The medical decisions were assumed by Maya's foster parents. Ellie says that they only became aware that their daughter was being prescribed medication after it was billed to their insurance, demonstrating that their daughter was taking the antidepressant Prestige and had also been prescribed birth control pills. Ellie has experienced concerns about this, noting that her daughter had not been sexually active prior to entering the state care, and that her daughter was being housed in the same room as a teenage boy because she identified as male. Faced with conflicting messaging and urgent concerns about their daughter's safety, the family filed a federal lawsuit in December of 2025. According to documents from the case, in August 29, 2025, the judge proceeding over the custody hearing had noted that Ellie and her husband had provided Maya with exceptional care and that no evidence suggested that the parents intentionally harmed the child. Yet despite this, Maya remains in the custody of the state, and Ellie and her husband are still classified as child abusers in the state registry. Due to a lack of representation, Ellie says that she is worried that the federal case will be dismissed and hopes to find a lawyer willing to assist her family. My daughter is 17 now. She is going to age out of care and custody, and we would have never had a resolution. Someone needs to hold Shasta County and the of California to account for what they've done to my family. To my daughter, I will always be waiting for you to come back. Ellie's story closely mirrors that of the Costed family in Montana, who lost custody of their teenage daughter in 2023 after opposing medical gender transition. In that case, the parents were accused of emotional abuse after refusing to consent to testosterone and puberty blockers following their young daughter's declaration of a transgender identity. Costed's daughter was removed after the family sought help from the clinicians, only to find those interactions later used as the basis for a state intervention. Court records showed that the family's refusal to affirm a transgender identity was framed as psychological harm, despite testimony that they had always met their daughter's needs. The parents were later barred from contact with the child under conditions tied to gender affirmation. Whew. I feel like I just read a whole book, but that was insane, and that is really fucking terrible that this family had to go through all of that while being one of the best fucking parents to their kid that they could be, trying to get her the proper care. And then of course you have these medical providers and these psychiatrists that basically, and these online LGBTQ Discord communities that convinced this girl to do all of this and destroy her life and her family's life. Like, this is absolutely insane, and it just breaks my heart for that family that they have to go through all of that and now permanently be on some child abuse registry when they never abused their child. I really wish stories like this would be shared more often, because this is just absolutely terrifying. Shame on fucking California for what they're doing to these parents.